Hey gang, welcome back to another video here at Joe Daddy's Garage. This is another Brooklyn Pony video, and even though it's numbered as 43, there's probably about 50 videos on this particular car as it is. So if you haven't seen those other videos, go to the playlist and start watching from the beginning to see the buildup of this 66 Mustang from a rusted Hulk to basically a new car. So in this video, I plan to take out the dummy transmission, which I've mocked into the car a few times, to check on fitment and see how things align with the engine and all that sort of thing. But in this video, I want to take that transmission back out and put in the actual transmission that'll be going into the car. Now, to put that in, I'm going to put it on a transmission jack, get it up underneath the car, and in the process, I will install the plate that goes between the engine and the transmission, and I will be test fitting the California Pony Cars Crossmember that was provided to me and go over some details on that. Along with that, I'll probably double check or check on the headers again, because I know those are still kind of a problem that I'm dealing with, and we may have to go with a whole different set of headers. I don't know yet. I know the owner is trying to figure something out with that, because the parts and the kit that we're using, everything is from TCI from that standpoint. The headers came with the suspension kit, and that process has kind of evolved along the way, let's say. I've had problems with the TCI products, and we're trying to get around all that. Now, the steering system that is in the car is a rack and pinion by Borgeson. The steering column is an I Did It. And so we assumed that if you order that kit from TCI that you will get everything that'll be compatible and fit. But if you go back to previous videos where I was doing engine test fitment, I ran into problems with the steering shaft clearing the header, and I had to modify the header, and I'm still not 100% convinced that it is where it will finally be. I know that there's some issues with the steering column itself and how it's placed inside the car. So go back and look at those videos, get refreshed on it. At this point, what I want to do is pull out this dummy transmission and then get the new one out of the box and get it up on the transmission jack. Let's have a look. Now, just to recap here, this is a AOD transmission. I think it's 4R70W or in that family of AOD transmissions, and it's hollow. There's nothing in this one. It's just the main body. And I did modify this. There was a lug on the back side here that was interfering. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a lug, I'll show it later, that was interfering with the fitment, so I had to cut that lug off. And otherwise, I haven't really done any modifications to this. And I will have to do something to the new transmission to make sure it's going to fit, and it'll be very similar. I'll have to cut one of those lugs off. Now, the lug that I'm talking about is used for rebuilding, apparently. They are mount points. So I think there's, I can't see them from down here, but they're mount points for setting it on a table so that you can turn it upside down and it won't fall away from you. It'll sit it up in a level position. So if those lugs are going to interfere with how this transmission fits, they're going to have to be modified. Now at this point, there's only one bolt actually holding this transmission to the engine, other than the alignment pins on the sides. In the previous videos, I did talk about and show how I was test fitting or modifying the bolts in the upper portion of the bell housing so that they could go in without doing major modifications. At this point, there's also a block back here that is supporting the transmission, so I can lift that, and now it's sitting basically on the engine mounts is what's keeping everything in place. So the bolt that's holding this is a 5/8. That's a lot easier to handle than the real thing. Alright, so I've shown this before, but it's going to be coming out of the box now. And this has in it an atomic MSD transmission control module. Set that aside. Here is I guess that's another part of the transmission control module. So a couple boxes of that. Box of something. Looks like, oh, probably something to do with shift linkage, I'm sure. Indicator of some sort. So, looks important. Also has a dipstick included. It's funny they have it written on here, 4R7W 5.0. Now the fun part. When I say the fun part, look here. Instruction, paperwork, AOD, AODE, 4R70W. Okay. Now I want to figure out how I can get this out of the box. Obviously it's got like a particle board panel in the bottom of the box that this is strapped to. I don't know what this weighs. Oh, let me see here. Wait a minute. I should. Aha! Yes. Almost forgot the plate. So, part number PA26445 on that. So, looking at this and realizing that I'm basically doing this by myself, I'm going to have to lift this out of here and put it on the transmission jack. I know I can't lift out, you know, with the panel attached, obviously, so I have to cut these straps off. These sound really tight. Huh. Play a little song there. Or not. Yeah, that's got some weight to it. Well, it just gets more complicated. I've never seen a transmission pan with a sump, so that makes it a little more difficult to use the transmission jack. I don't know if I'm going to have to make something so I feel more comfortable with it. Right now it's resting on the pan and this block of wood because, well, it would be teetering on that little sump. But at this point I just have to think it over. I will point out there was another plate in the box, and I'm sure that's just a filler plate. Goes somewhere, probably down here. Look at that. Yep. Okay, so that's there. But, things that make you go, I don't know how I feel about that. 'Cause that's not a light transmission. But, got to figure out how to get it in there, I guess. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm not putting myself in a compromised position whenever I want, go to put this in the car. So I wanted to do a comparison side by side because at least I had some reference point from the first housing that I used. And as I pointed out, and I know I used these lugs to get this out of the box, but these lugs, in my opinion, have to go. They're going to have to be cut off. That's what I had cut off over here on this one, so it would clear the transmission tunnel, the bracing that's in there. So I'm going to cut these two lugs off and just eliminate them. Overall, they're very similar transmissions. I know this one has a 40 in the casting up here, and this one does have a 70. And I know there's training experts that can tell me there's this, that, and the other are different, but I can look and see that basically all the mount points appear to be the same on the side. You know, your input here, the speedo mount in the back, the little vent up on top that I had to notch out the brace in the transmission tunnel for that vent to clear. Otherwise, everything on the back half looks the same. Now I want to point this out. I know whenever I was putting this in place, there was a difference in the length of the transmissions. So let me set up the camera just a little bit differently. And I want to show you something because, and I already knew this, but I want to show you the numbers. So if I pull off of the face of the bell, and just using this as a guide, this level, and I come square off the back of the transmission tailpiece, it appears to be about 32 and really about 3/16, maybe a quarter, somewhere in that range. So 32 and we'll say, just say a quarter, 32 and a quarter. If I compare that to this one, pulling from the same place basically, squaring up, this one is 31 and about 5/16. So a little bit of a difference, maybe an inch, but not much. So that'll come into play later whenever I get everything in place, because we want to do a measurement for the transmission so that we can have that made. Now, beyond cutting off these lugs, I want to go to the front of the bell and show you some differences up there. Okay, so one of the things that I've done is I relocated this support bracket for the torque converter. I'm still undecided if I want to pull this all the way out or not. I'm just kind of leaving it in place for now. But this was mounted up here, and so there was enough play or enough space in this bracket that I could move it down and keep it in place. So that's got a bolt holding that piece in. Now, whenever I was mocking everything up, I know I was having some issues with the bolts lining up on the back of the block. And I want to show you this. I'll use this filler plate that comes with the transmission to show you the differences. So if I line this up, you can see, at least it appears that it lines up on all the holes that are on the perimeter of the bell, and even where the starter bolt holes go. And then it shows you there's another cutout here and two more holes, and that says 157 only. So pardon me for not knowing, but I'm assuming there's another variation out there that would use this cutout space, because this is cut with a plasma cutter. It's hard to see, but there's actually like a hyphenated cutout to where I could break this out of here and smooth up that edge if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. Now let's show you this on the other bell, and completely different setup. And I mean completely different. There's no way this would work for the starter configuration. It doesn't line up on any of these, or this hole up here, these holes over here, it doesn't line up on. So obviously completely different, but that's okay. I'm not using that bell or that transmission anymore. Just wanted to show you that comparison. So hopefully I can get this thing trimmed up in the back here, get these lugs cut off, and get it up in the car without any other problems. However, I do want to show you one more thing, because this is important as well. Hold on. Alright, so you know how I always stress mocking up, test fitting, making sure everything goes in place, just because you don't want to be fighting with it later in mass, let's say, as a big process. Now, if I were to try to have this transmission going in right now without checking this plate, I would be very frustrated. If I put this plate up here, it will not slide over the pins, the guide pins. This one it starts to go over, but this one it will not. And you know, I can't imagine being up here and fighting and trying to force that, because that should be pre-drilled to the right size, but it's not. There's no way that's going to go on there. This one, yeah, it's snug as well. So just a point of reference here, double check your stuff, because you don't want to be fighting with this when you've got a who knows how much weight transmission that you're fighting with. So the other thing I need to do is open up those two holes where the dowel pins are in a block. So to do that, I'm just going to use a Tootsie Roll sanding disc and just go around a couple times, and then I'll test fit it to the engine to make sure that it's going to slide on okay. The one on the passenger side seemed to clear okay, but that one on the driver's side is still tight. Perfect. And I'll point out, it's also a good idea to run your bolts in to each one of the holes so that you know the hole that they have on the plate is going to clear the threads. Alright, we're a couple steps closer now. Okay, I think I've come up with a solution for holding the transmission. Now, this is the wood that was inside of the crate. I pulled on it and it came loose easily enough, but it was held together with just like staples. So I ran some screws into it to make it more sound. This cutout was already there, and that's for the shifter linkage. And what I've done is I've centered it up as best I can on the plate that's existing, but these carriers or these corner straps aren't big enough to make it to the outside. So at this point, I've got them bolted solid to where they can't move. And now what I'll do is add some 1¼ inch screws with a nice big washer, and I can go through the existing hole that's on the bottom and just attach this basically to the jack. And hopefully that'll be enough to keep things from shifting around and make it a lot more secure. So now I need to get that transmission up onto the jack. So I've modified things a little bit. I'm still using the front mount points with the chains from the engine hoist or leveler, and back here I've looped the chain around and put a bolt in the bottom, and then used one of the loops or one of the links from the engine leveler to lift this up. So now I've got a good way to support it and get it up, and hopefully get it on this stand and it feels a lot more stable. We'll find out. Still don't like the way it feels, but it's better than it was. Well, I knew I was going to have problems, and I do. The problem is, tail shaft is going to hit the TCI crossmember, whatever that is. So I tried putting it up and getting it as far forward as I possibly could, and at this point, it's not going to happen. So the plan is to pull out that cross member, which unfortunately supports the, I guess you call it the panhard bar or whatever, that connects to the rear axle differential. I think I can support this and leave it in place. That's the plan. But I'll have to pull out this structure, whatever this is called, and get it out of the way, and then I'll have clearance to get the transmission up, because at this point I need about probably 4 inches at least to get it in. And I tried turning the transmission a little bit sideways, not going to happen. And it would be even more difficult if the flywheel were in place, and it's not. So at this point I've got to do some creative thinking, because I can't have any of that come all the way out, because the rear end will want to swing, I believe, pivot, and that would be really bad. So I'm going to figure out a way to support that centerpiece and get this superstructure out. It's in at this point. All right, the transmission is bolted to the engine, and I have it supported by the stand that I've been using. And what I did is I had the adjustable jack, which is now kind of just underneath the oil pan or transmission pan. It's not doing anything, it's just sitting there. But I had this underneath the torque tube, and with it in the way, I could not remove the undercarriage or all the bracket system that goes in here, because the transmission hoop goes around this. So with the jack there and the transmission hoop, I could not lower that down and get it out of the way. So I got creative, and with it supported, I took a piece of angle iron, drilled some holes in it, and now I'm supporting that shaft from, you know, the rear of the car with the angle iron. And then I was able to pull the jack stand out and then remove that main assembly, which this gets complicated. Okay. At this point, I want to still see how well the California Pony Car Crossmember, or how close it's going to fit. I know it's not going to fit, but I just kind of want to know. So I went to Tractor Supply and I got some grade 5 bolts for the transmission. These are just standard 3/4 bolts, about 1.5 inches long, I think, and plenty of meat on them to draw up in there. Now, I was provided with this Summit brand transmission mount, and there's some part numbers there, so if you want to look that up, you can. And it comes in 2 pieces. So it comes with the main mount and some hardware that goes in the bottom, and then it points out specifically that you have to have this plate because it completes the assembly. It pinches down on this part. So with that in mind, I'm going to get this mount in place. And those are 3/4 inch bolts. 3/4 inch head. I guess technically a 1/2 inch bolt. That's a good length. That's about probably 4 threads sticking out on top. Okay, let me see if I can get a good angle here. I don't know. Now I want to test fit the CPC Crossmember. If you've been following me on Instagram or on my Facebook page, you already know I'm not happy with this, and I don't know why we as consumers allow ourselves to fall for this, because this thing is like $150 or $60, whatever. And let me just show you. I have to get some bolts. Hold on just a second. No, I have these bolts. Okay, so yeah, okay. Let me see, can I get it anywhere close? Nope. Nope. Can you see that? Tell me you can see that, right? Here's the center line for the bolts. Here is the mount point. And then, you know, this is on the crossmember, or the support structure that it's supposed to be attached to. And there's just no way. And then it's hitting the transmission on the other side. Let me try to show this from another angle. Okay, this is looking up from the passenger side. Now, I can get one side to fit or the other, and again, this not even close, in my opinion. I mean, the height is probably correct to support the bushing, or, you know, the mount. If I ran a bolt through Well, I can get a bolt in one hole. I can almost get it in both holes, but I can, no, I take that back. Not even close. So here's the thing. You know, we spend good money on parts and pieces, and you know, this is supposed to be the correct cross member to make this an easy conversion, right? And there's just no way. There's just no way. I don't get it. I mean, I can. It's hitting a mount that's on the side of the transmission right here. I know it's hard to see, but there's a lug sticking out, and I may have to cut that lug off and get rid of it regardless, because it is so close. Yeah. And then it's hitting the transmission pan. It's hitting. I really don't want to throw this across the garage. I really don't, but I really do. I really, really do. Things that make you go, So you know what that means? I guess there's two scenarios that we could play out here. One is I cut this thing up and make make something out of what's left of this. Or we send this back and get a refund, and I just make my own, which is probably what I'm going to have to do. Okay then, dead in the water. Okay, I wanted to go over a couple things. You know, with the other transmission housing that I had in place, I had drawn some lines where that corner was close, and it's the same with this one. There's a little more space on this side, up at the top. Otherwise, I've got a couple things that are close to being a problem. This mount right here is very close to the welded in cross member or support structure, whatever you want to call it. Otherwise, everything else looks like it's going to clear okay, hopefully. And over here, I've got this lug, which is pretty close. Sorry, got a lot of things to avoid hitting my head on right now. So that's pretty close. The and you can see maybe the top, if I can get a light, that top back corner, I'm trying to light that up. I don't see any way to make the California Pony Car cross member work. Obviously, I could get one side to kind of go in and the other side to not go in at all. And along with that, the corner of, or this side of the oil pan, sorry, this part of the oil pan right here was hitting that California Pony Car cross member. So I'm going to make my own. I had a feeling I was going to have to do this anyway, but I know whatever I end up having or buying or whatever, that it's going to cause me problems. And I would rather custom make one and show you how to do it than to fight with some of this other stuff. And I have a vision already, so I think you're going to like what I come up with, and that'll come later. Okay, I'm going to end this video. This has been pretty frustrating. And, you know, it's not anybody's fault in particular. I will say that I tried to use the CPC crossmember, and I don't know exactly what this is designed for. I know what it's supposed to be designed for, but it's not for this car. This one is for the 65 or 66. We know it won't fit. But I wanted to point out specifically that these don't even fit the welded in structure of the transmission tunnel. Like, I'll post some pictures, but the bolt holes don't work. I posted this on Mustang forum on Facebook, and somebody commented. They said, hey, put it in a press and reshape it, or slot out the holes, which I know some people have done that. But whenever I put this in, if I had one hole, you know, get this, a bolt in this hole wasn't even close. I mean, it was a good half a hole or more off. And in my mind, if somebody's going to charge you $150+ for basically some probably roll bar tubing and a couple of bent brackets, it should fit the car. It should do exactly what it's meant to do. So I will not endorse this company, California Pony Cars. I don't know who their engineer is, or if they even, you know, did a serious test fit of this stuff or real world scenario. I don't know. But this is going back. I'm just going to say send it back. I'm being honest. Why? Because you want me to be honest and tell you the truth. And that's what I'm doing. So at this point, you can, you know, I've talked about it. I've shown what's going on with different things. But at this point, I have a vision for my own version, my own Crossmember. And hopefully I can come up with something that maybe other people can build themselves, maybe. Because the difficulty with these kind of cross members is they're bent. It's tubing that's bent on a mandrel or a tubing bender of some sort to get the shape. Obviously, you know, they spend some money on a computer program that does their thing and gets the shape that they want. I'm not capable of doing that. I did talk to a friend of mine who has a muffler shop, who also builds race cars, and he was going to work with me on building some tubing or bending it up to make it work, but I have a different vision in mind. And I say that because unless you have somebody who has access to a tubing bender of some sort, you're not going to be able to make your own. But with my thinking, I think you can make your own. So I'm going to have to come up with some ideas to show you, and I think you'll like it. I already have it in my head. I've already built the thing in my head, so that'll come later. But I'm going to end this video because there's nothing else I can do at this point to this. So I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Keep on hitting that like button. Share the videos, get the information out there, help this channel grow. I need it to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, I'm pretty much assured that I'm taking my early retirement and doing this full time. So I need help from viewers like you to help me do this stuff. So, but that's going to be it. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. Hey gang, where did that come from? I don't know. Let's have a look. Let's get started. Okay, I think I have resolved several problems. I've added... Put the air hose first. See ya.